Right guys, the last job I have to do today is to transform my key from this to this. Unfortunately, this era of Range Rover key is prone to delaminating and just generally looking really terrible after a few years use. You can see this this bottom piece has actually come off completely now, so yeah, it's generally filthy. It's gone all shiny. It just looks really bad. But fortunately for us, Land Rover realised this was an issue and they released an official part which is a replacement casing for this. So instead of having this silly laminated design, these are basically solid plastic cases with a textured finish which look like this. They look a lot better, to be honest, and feels really nice in the hand, so yeah, it's a good upgrade to do. So what you're going to need to do this yourself if you want to do it is obviously the replacement casing. That's the part number there that you can see. You need one of those. Probably a couple of these sort of spodger tools just for prizing and getting the casing open on the original thing. So I've just got a couple of different sizes there. And then you'll also want a little screwdriver with a flat tip just for additional prizing if you need it. So hopefully you can do it just using the plastic, but if it's a bit stubborn, you might need one of these. Oh, and whilst we're in there, we're going to replace the battery as well, because why not? So the first step is going to be to just take out the key portion of the remote, which you can do by pressing in on the ends, he says. Can be a bit tricky to get it. So there we go, like that. So your key should pop out. So the next step is we're going to open up the side of the key that has the battery casing in it. So you just want to get your screwdriver or prizing tool, press down on this little part of the key here, which presses that part down, and then pop that open, and that should swing open. And then that reveals the battery drawer in here. So once you've done that, the next step is to actually pull the two halves of the casing apart, and they're literally just clipped together. There's nothing screwed together or anything like that. So I find it's easiest just to grab the two pieces of the casing like this and pull. You can see that's starting to come apart there. And then once you've got that bit popped open, I usually find it's easiest to come to this end of the key and literally put your screwdriver in like that, push down, and it will pop open like so. So once you've got it open, you can see that's our board in there, that's where the battery would sit. Once you've got it open, you can pull off the side casings. This one will just lift off, it's hinged on. Same again for this one. This one can be a bit fiddly because it's got a switch at the top here. Like that. What you can do now is pull that out. And there we are. And then from this casing itself, we need to save the key retainer, the spring from this end. So the last bit we need to take out from the casing is this button and the tiny spring that sits in behind it. But just for my thumbnail is a tiny clip that holds this button in place. So all we've got to do is press that down and then gently pull the button out, and that should release it from the case, he says. So there you go, button's out, and you can just see the spring on there wanting to drop off. So we'll carefully take that off and then pop the spring down as well. Don't lose it. So there you go, that's one bare case. We can now throw this away in the bin where it belongs. So before I go and clean up the metal parts of the case to go back on together into the key, I'm just going to fit the springs and the metal parts into the new parts of the key casing. So we have it, our lovely fresh front and back casings. They look way nicer than the original ones. Way nicer. Oh, that reminds me, one part we need to save from the casing obviously is this gasket. Got to very gently remove it. There we go, we'll give that a bit of a wipe in a minute. So I'm just going to put the key retaining clip into the new case. It's just a case of lining it up, and then I like to use a bit of force with a screwdriver, just because it's quite sharp on the old fingers. And then the next part I'm going to put in is just this little spring, which drops in like so. And then lastly, I'm just going to pop the button back onto the top of the casing as well. I find it's easiest to just drop the little spring on top of there's a little knob for it to sit on in there. So just line it up, make sure it goes into the right slot. And just push it in. And there we go. Perfect. So here we have our two parts of the casing that are fully prepared now. Got the button in, the spring in, and I've also just dropped the gasket back onto this part. So what I'm going to do now is take our metal pieces, give them a bit of a scrub down with some water and a wire brush, and then I might actually hit them with a bit of Brasso as well, just to bring up the, take out a few of these scratches and bring them up looking nice and shiny. So all I've got to clean these is just literally some soapy water and one of these brass wire brushes. It's a bit softer on the metal, so it hopefully won't make any more scratches. So chuck them in there. So there we have it, guys, got all our bits ready to go back together. First step now is to drop in your transceiver device into the key, like that. So I'm just going to put the key back in place by dropping it in to kind of wangle it under the button that we put in earlier. So next we just want to drop the other side of the key into place onto that pin, and then get the battery tray with our battery. Your battery just goes into the tray like this, positive side up, and then just slide it into the key like that. Then we can push this side of the key back together and you'll see it clip into that spring we put in earlier, like that. And then you literally take your new back case, make sure you get it the right way around with the key. You can see by the shape of the moulding there that that's the only way it will go in. And then just line everything up. Simply squeeze it back together. There we have it. Job done. One restored Range Rover L322 key. Sorted.